We are recording. Great. Now I'm going to share my screen with just the application. And can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So welcome to Self-Care for Mental Health.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do first, my name is Hallie Brockman. I'm the coordinator of student wellness from the Office of Student Wellness. And today we're going to talk about what you do for self-care, the psychology behind self-care, and how it has evolved and how we have evolved with regard to stress and stressors. So let me first ask what you do for self-care.
Uh, uh, Play a lot of video games, play guitar,
Okay. Oh,
I
nice.
read a lot of articles,
Great. Okay.
and
Um, are
showers.
there and showers? Great. That's perfect. Are there things that you have heard a lot that you've been told to do for self-care that's like good for self-care?
Oh yeah. Go outside, work out, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm hesitant to do, and then I don't know. I just eat healthy, I guess.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks for sharing.
No problem.
Now, third question. What would you say is the purpose of self-care? Do you feel like you could
Hmm.
define that?
Yeah, to not, I mean, to reduce stress and live an enjoyable life.
Okay. Great. I like that. Good answer. Okay.
Thanks.
So, before we really get
Aw.
into all of the like science and oh yeah, still just a picture. um, Before we get into evolutionary psychology behind it, I want to make a clear distinction between self-care and just basic human needs. So that you need to survive just as a human. So
Okay.
those typically include eating enough, drinking enough water, having shelter, and having clothing. Modern lists also sometimes include sanitation, education, healthcare, and internet. It's just things you need to function normally in your everyday life. So a lot of people, when they talk about self-care, you'll hear like drinking enough water and eating food. And that's like yes, that's taking care of yourself, but that's not really what we mean when we say self-care, because self-care is about reducing stress
Yeah.
and helping you function at a very basic level. Did I just disconnect and come back again?
Yep, but you're back.
Okay, yep, I heard it. All right. Uh-oh. We're going to
So
keep going and
self-care
see how it goes.
is
Let me just double check that we're still recording. Yep, okay.
cool.
All right. So, part of why we need self-care is yes, to reduce stress, um, which if we never reduce stress would lead to burnout. So burnout is the very, very edge of the cliff that we definitely want to stay well away from.
Yeah,
And this is kind of something that we hear a lot, but maybe don't necessarily get a very clear definition of. So different things. Emotional exhaustion or fatigue that comes from caring too much for too long. It can look like depersonalization, which is the depletion of empathy, caring, and compassion. So you no longer, feel that personal connection with someone's strife or struggle. And then it can
mm,
look like a decreased sense of accomplishment. So this would be feeling an unconquerable sense of futility or feeling that nothing you do makes any difference or nothing you do is ever good enough.
definitely
So,
felt burnout before.
okay, yeah, that was my next question. If any of this sounds familiar, shoot. I
It
am,
does.
I'm sorry to hear that. But hopefully the rest of this will help with avoiding that in the future. Um, this is obviously what we want to avoid, but also we don't want to think of self-care as just like barely avoiding burnout on a regular basis, because that also sounds a little exhausting. We would ideally keep you very far away from that cliff edge of burnout.
Yeah.
So now we'll get into the actual science of stress and stressors, because this is why we need self-care. So there's a difference. Stressors are the things that activate a stress response in the body. So it can be literally anything you see, hear, smell, touch, taste, or even just imagine could do you harm. And there are external and internal stressors. So, external stressors can include things like work, money, family, time constraints, cultural norms or expectations, experiences of discrimination, actual dangerous situations, of course, anything else you might think of that is coming from outside of your person. Internal stressors can be things like self-criticism, body image, identity struggles, memories, the future, capital F, things that are just looming that you maybe are ruminating on or worrying about or have anxiety about from inside of your head. Stress, on the other hand, is the neurological and physiological shift that happens in your body when you encounter one of these threats. It's an evolutionarily adaptive response that helps us cope with things like, say, being chased by a lion or a hippo, because it activates a generic stress response. What this looks like is our sensitivity to pain diminishes, your senses are heightened, your memory shifts to channel its functioning to the narrow band of experience and knowledge that is most immediately relevant to this stressor to try and help you focus on getting away from the lion or the hippo. And your other organ systems get deprioritized to maximize your body's efficiency. So your digestion slows down, your immune functioning shifts, growth and tissue repairs slow down, and as does reproductive functioning. Also, obviously, the obvious stuff, heart beats faster, blood pumps harder, breathing quickens, muscles tense. So a lot of
Mm,
stuff that's not super great to have or live in a constant state of, right?
yeah. Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Basically, what it comes down to is your entire body and mind change in response to the perceived threat, whether that threat is real or not. Because again, these stressors can be things like money, which is not really like a hippo that you can run away from and then be safe from forever. So
Think
this
about
is why we need self-care. If we're constantly stressed, that means our body believes that it is under a constant state of attack, and all of those bodily systems aren't functioning normally. And we really want your body to function normally and to be able to, have that growth, that tissue repair and cell regrowth, and basic things like that that we think our body is doing automatically, but sometimes maybe gets deprioritized. So, what do we do? Well, back in caveman days, if you encountered the lion, you run, and you either get eaten or trampled or you escape. Let's say you escape. You run back to your village, you shout for help, everyone comes out and helps slaughter the lion, you're saved. You love your friends and your family, you're grateful to be alive, you relax in the certain knowledge that your body is a safe place to be. Then maybe the village cooks the lion together, shares the feast, bury the parts you don't need in an honoring ceremony, and hand in hand with the people you love, you take a deep, relaxing breath and give thanks to the lion for its sacrifice.
Mm, regular
So,
day.
just a regular day, exactly. So, that is how we used to complete the stress response cycle, which is very important in getting rid of the stress that was caused by the stressor in our body. Back in caveman days, the stressor and the stress response and your reaction to it fit very well together in a way
Mm,
that both addressed the stressor and the stress. But with modern day stressors, it can be all encompassing And our response to those stressors doesn't necessarily naturally get rid of the stress or the stressor.
Right.
So, say today you encounter a lion, maybe you have a gun, you shoot the lion, the threat is gone, but what about the stress in your body? You're still going to be in stress mode, stuck in the middle of that stress response, because you're just telling yourself you're safe now, calm down, doesn't get rid of stress in your body. If it did, we'd
Mm,
have no problem with this. So you have to do something that signals to your body that you are safe, or else you'll stay in that state with neurochemicals and hormones degrading but never shifting into relaxation. Um, we need all of your bodily functions to resume normal activity. This can be very hard for modern day stressors that never go away, like money worries, discrimination, body image, the future. These could be on a daily basis, maybe even hourly basis, putting your body into the stress response mode.
yeah.
So let's look more deeply at the stress cycle. So what we're talking about here is we encounter the stressor, this starts the cycle, and our body responds by experiencing the stress, which is a response to that stressor. So that shift, that neurological and physiological shift occurs. But then unfortunately, with modern day stressors, a lot of us get stuck here. So what we're really talking about today is the signal, that third part of the stress cycle. So that is the signal to our body and our mind that we're safe again, so that our functioning can go back to normal.
Mm,
So what that looked like in the caveman example was running, yelling, asking for help, fighting, nourishing our body, being surrounded by loved ones, performing some type of gratitude ceremony, things like that. So what we're going to do is translate those into things we can do today.
okay.
So what it comes down to is just doing something that signals to your body that you are safe, that your body's a safe
Effectively.
place to be, the world around you is safe, and we're going to figure out how to do that when the stressor isn't a tiger. You said something and I missed. What did you say? Victor? No? Okay. Are you still there? Oh no. Dropped. Okay. I'm going to continue on. So, with real life examples, the most efficient way to complete the cycle is to do anything that moves your body enough to get you breathing deeply. This is, 20 to 60 minutes most days. You encounter stressors most days, so you'll need to complete the cycle most days as well. So this can look like running, dancing, swimming, yoga, walking. It can be simply standing up from your chair, taking a deep breath, and tensing all of your muscles for 20 seconds, then shaking it out with a big exhale. Um, the physical activity is what tells your brain that you've successfully survived the threat, you've run away from it, and now your body is a safe place to live. If you really, really hate working out, totally understandable, there are other options. So this can look like deep breathing. So deep, slow breaths down-regulate the stress response. It's a very gentle way of doing this. So it's a great place to start after maybe a really intense stress or even trauma. Breathing can be a great way to get you through a terribly stressful situation if you can't leave it right away. And it can get you through a certain amount of time until you can do something more hardcore like exercise to work through the stress. Positive social interaction is another external sign that the world around you is a safe place to be. So it can be as simple as small talk on public transport, or maybe saying, hey, have a nice day to your barista. Laughter increases relationship satisfaction, but it has to be real belly laughs. We're talking deep, impolite, helpless laughter. Another thing is any deeper connection with a loving presence. So that can be physical affection, like a full 20-second hug, or hugging until relaxed is a term that some psychologists have used. It could also be in the form of maybe petting a cat or a dog for a few minutes. That's physical affection with another being. It can also look like spiritual connection. This can help people feel connected to an invisible yet intensely tangible tribe. Hi, Victor. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you so much. Sorry about that.
No worries. I kept going just for the sake of the video.
Good. That's good.
So,
Sorry.
next we have a big old cry, because like the rest of this stuff, crying might not deal with the problem, but it sure does a great job of dealing with the stress. When we cry, we don't cry forever, right? We cry for a finite amount of time, even if when we're crying, it feels like we could cry forever. But emotions are like tunnels. So we just have to get through them. And then when we're done, we're out of the tunnel, we're done crying, and we typically take a really big deep breath, heave a great sigh, and our body feels immensely calmer than it did before we cried. This was also why when someone is crying, it's great to not tell them to stop crying because they're just trying to get through that tunnel. So you don't want to like stop them in the middle of the tunnel. You want to just let them cry it out. You'll be able to tell when they're done because they heave that great big sigh, and then they can talk about it. Or maybe not, whatever they want to do.
Shoot, I gotta change my strategy. Been telling everybody stop.
Yeah, let them cry. Cry it out. And then finally, creative expression. So, like you said, you play the guitar, great. Creative contexts tolerate or even encourage big emotions. So, they often allow us a space to celebrate and move through these big emotions. It's almost like a cultural loophole in a society that tells us to be nice and not make waves and not have huge emotions show in public. So, use the loophole. It's great.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you know when you've completed the stress cycle? Well, hopefully your body tells you. It could be like how you know when you're full. It's like a shift in your mood or your mental state. Maybe you can feel physical tension leaving your shoulders or your body, wherever you carry that stress, as you breathe more deeply. Maybe you feel like you can take the first deep breath you've taken all day. That's often how hugs make me feel. I'm just like, oh, okay, I feel like I can breathe, like using my full lungs. That is how you know you've completed the stress cycle. That's how I know. For some people, it's different. Maybe it feels like when you shift gears on a bike and suddenly the wheels are spinning more easily. You don't have to work quite as hard just to live your life as yourself. But also, if you're not feeling these obvious shifts in feeling, don't worry if you can't recognize it yet. Maybe you've spent your whole life building up that stress and you've got a lot of, like a whole backlog of stressors to work through or response cycles to work through and get out. And that could take a little while. So that's okay. As long as you feel incrementally better than before you started, if you can notice something in your body shifted or changed in the direction of peace, you're good. It's working. Keep going.
Okay.
So, there are a lot of definitions out there about wellness, but in regard to the stress response cycle, and other bodily cycles, wellness is defined by the author that I took all this content from that I'll talk about at the end. Wellness is defined as the freedom to move fluidly through the cycles of being human. So that's, the stress response cycle, maybe your circadian rhythm cycle, all these other cycles that we go through, whether we realize it or not. So if you're doing this regularly, getting your body back to a state of believing you're safe and can relax, great. You're doing wonderfully. And unfortunately, this requires constant upkeep, like I said, because we encounter stressors every damn day, often multiple times a day. So let's return back to answers you gave at the beginning. So think for a minute if what you're doing is working, and if so, why. So that guitar playing is definitely like scientifically backed, good for wellness, good for your self-care.
Hmm.
Let's see. Do you want to talk me through
Oh
some
yeah.
of the other stuff you were doing?
Uh, yeah. I've been trying to wake up earlier, um, to keep my circadian rhythm like static rather than constantly like shifting, and then
Good.
that's helped, I think. Uh,
Right.
I have
Makes
to use a
sense.
horrible alarm clock to do it, which is stressful. But then, as soon as I complete the alarm, I feel safe again. As you were
Okay.
talking about, that's like the signal. I'm like, I know I'm
Oh,
not gonna go back to
interesting.
sleep, and because I've just spent 10 minutes trying to solve a very simple math problem, and then
Right.
uh, what else I do?
How about
I
the video games? Do you think that that
video
makes
games.
sense as good self-care with what you know now about how the stress response cycle works?
Well, I think I missed a little tiny bit in the middle, but I'm gonna say sometimes because
Okay.
there's like a reward, right? Like
Okay. Yeah,
it puts you in a stressful situation, right? Because you're like, you gotta get this enemy or whatever. But then
that's true.
sometimes there's a reward of winning, but sometimes there's the stress of just losing. But I think that it
Yes.
really just depends on how I interpret it, I guess. Like at the
Okay.
time, like if I interpret losing as a stressful situation, then it's a negative thing. But I don't really, unless I
Yeah.
lose like 20 times in a row. But it's
Yeah.
probably better to go outside and like ride a bike, I'm sure.
Probably. I think
Yeah.
there's obviously value in doing something that you find fun, but if we're talking like traditionally stuff that gets you through the stress response cycle, playing video games would not be on the top of my list,
Yeah,
because I
true.
think that it bodily, even though we're having fun, I think that it can like make us tense or more tense and like stress us out a little bit in our bodies more.
Without without relieving it
Yeah, yeah.
with like the physical like endorphins you get from working out, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that was I think the page that you missed where it was, here we can go back. Why not?
Thank you.
Physical activity is like the best way to get your body through the stress response cycle because think about it, you're running from the lion or you're fighting the lion. Um,
And then
it's
you just
just,
relax afterwards.
yeah, it like physically gets the stress out of our bodies. But
Yeah.
but that can also look like just tensing and like holding all of your muscles tense for 20 seconds and then releasing and doing that a couple of times. And then
Um,
this whole slide was for if you really hate physical activity, which is very understandable.
okay.
Which is so other things are just like deep breathing. That your body can't be in a state of stress if you are truly deeply breathing because
Mm.
it's different. I always forget one's the sympathetic nervous system, one's the parasympathetic nervous system. And if you're deeply breathing, then you are taking yourself out of the stressful one and bringing yourself into the relaxed one. And then
Mm.
other things were like positive social interactions so that you are telling yourself that the world around you is safe, even if it's just like small talk with a stranger. Um,
That works
lots
for
of like,
sure.
great, lots that makes sense for an extrovert like you.
Yeah.
Um, lots of like deep belly laughter, affection, whether that's a hug, a long hug, petting a cat or a dog. Um, what else did I say?
Did
Affection,
it-
whether
Oh,
like spiritual with a tribe, like a invisible but tangible tribe, and then I think maybe just yeah.
I can hear you
Back.
a little bit.
Oh,
There,
am I back?
mostly. You're a little bit slow, but
Okay.
okay,
Oh,
you're good.
well, we're almost done anyway.
Okay.
So, do you have any new ideas for what you're gonna do if you feel stress in your body?
I think I'm gonna work out more and definitely work out more, but I think the tensing thing is good. Is it just you guys still? Yeah, but she's recording.
Awesome.
Um, it's the tensing up and then releasing. I kind of I
Yeah.
kind of actually do that, but with a different. thing. I do it with breathing. I like take in like the deepest breath I can and then hold it for like 10 seconds and then let it go.
Yeah,
And that kind of like
perfect.
triggers my, I guess, deep breathing. But I
Yeah,
think the tenseness and release,
absolutely.
like you said, that makes sense now. I always wondered why that relaxed me, but
Hey, yeah, I do understand. And if it works for you, great. Remember that.
yeah.
This is about figuring out what works best for you, what you actually enjoy doing. Because obviously, if you hate running, I despise running. So that's not going to be the way that I relieve stress from my body because it's going to make me angry. And that's not my goal here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
perfect. So this is a book that I took all of this information from. Emily Nagoski is my personal hero. I either want to be her or work with her professionally. She's so cool.
Okay.
Um, she has a PhD in public health and works at a university. I think she's an all women's college, and she like does their wellness programming basically. Um, so this most of the content from this presentation was just in chapter one. So if you are interested in learning more and going way deeper, I highly recommend this book. Um, and also, I also highly recommend her first book, or her book before this, which is called Come As You Are, which is about like women's sexuality, because most of sex research has been done with men in the past. So
Oh.
yeah, she's super cool, and this book is great.
What was her name? Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, I missed the
Yeah,
first. Oh, there it is. There's the first book. You cut out right when you're talking about it a little bit.
shoot. Okay. But yeah, this is the book.
Cool. I got to read that.
This is me and Charlotte. We are also confidential student advisors. Um, all things interpersonal violence, meaning sexual assault, dating and domestic violence, stalking, and harassment. And these are your campus community resources, confidential versus non-confidential. As a reminder, confidential means that if you talk to us, for example, on our 24/7 hotline there on the first line, then it is not an official report to the university. It doesn't have to go to the Title IX office. That information stays with us until you want it to go elsewhere. And then, yeah, questions, comments, concerns? And
Yeah,
that is
what was
about
the
it.
second? Oh, sorry. What was the second book you said?
Oh, her book before Burnout is called Come As You Are.
Oh, Come As You Are. Okay, gotcha. Cool.
Yes.
Well, thank you.